Hi everybody, I'm Dan Joseph with MRC-TV. Today, I'm joined by John Whitehead. He is the president of the Rutherford Institute and the author of the new book, A Government of Wolves, The Emerging American Police State. Now that's a pretty controversial title. Thank you for joining us via Skype today, John. How are you doing?
Thank you. Doing fine.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, the idea of an American police state is going to be pretty alarming to a lot of people. So first of all, just explain what you write about in your new book and where you think we're headed as a country.
Well, I think, the revelations by Edward Snowden on the National Security Agency, basically downloading all the information about us off of the internet. In fact, I had a former NSA agent of over 20 years. He came by to visit me. By the way, he likes my book a lot. He calls himself a constitutionalist, and they don't like what the government's doing. He said the government's probably, in his opinion, downloading at least 1 trillion bits of information from the internet every day. That includes text messages, Facebook posts, banking records, all those kind of things. So that usually is the first sign, is that the government's watching everybody. And they're doing that right now. Everybody has a file. About 2.5 months ago, the FBI, an agent on CNN, admitted that they were downloading our phone calls. So in fact, right after 9/11, President Bush authorized the NSA to download phone calls. They were doing approximately, and this is all footnotable, by the way, 320 million phone calls a day. So we're being watched. Everything you do today is recorded. In fact, we have cases where people do Facebook posts. They have the FBI show up. In one case, we defended a Marine named Brandon Robb, and we have a federal lawsuit going on now in that particular case. He did some Facebook posts. He's a former Marine. He was in Iraq and Afghanistan. He doesn't like some of the things the Obama administration is doing, the numerous executive orders and all those things. Well, he was arrested by a whole cadre of police, FBI agents, Department of Homeland Security. They read his Facebook posts.
Okay, well, let me ask you this though, because
what I'm saying is, they're watching the average American, and they actually put this guy in a mental hospital. We got him out in a week. A judge really shouldn't have been in there, and we've sued the Department of Homeland Security now. But that's a police state.
Okay, well, when people hear the term police state, they generally associate that with regimes like the Soviet Union back during the Cold War, the Nazis, the current North Korean regime, and they associate that with things like gulags and concentration camps. I mean, do you really think that's where the end game for us as Americans? Do you see us heading in that direction right now because of the NSA?
It's my opinion. Again, my book has 30 pages of footnotes. Everything I talk about is footnotable. So the thing is that with the militarization of the police, there are 80,000 SWAT team raids occurring across the United States annually now. That's 3,000% increase since the 1980s, where police are going through doors. And I detail this a lot in the book. The SWAT team raids, people are getting killed, they shoot their dogs, they threaten them, those kind of things. That bypasses the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment.
How do you explain that to somebody? Because right now, people are hearing these little tidbits in the news. They hear words like NSA, and they hear words like drones, but most of them aren't really that politically savvy. Most people aren't going to read your book, probably. And how do you tell them? How do you convince them? You say, hey, listen, people are watching you, and you should care. Why should they care? I mean, they're not getting hurt by this if this is happening. They're not necessarily being inconvenienced by it. How do you convince people that this is bad and that this is going to inevitably lead to a society such as those that we mentioned earlier?
Well, yeah, I get that question all the time. If I'm not doing anything wrong, why should I worry? Well, again, I've studied history. To give you an example, Hitler was so popular by 1933, the Nazis were thinking of getting rid of the Gestapo. As early as 1933, there were newspaper articles across Germany about the concentration camps. People were saying the same thing. Well, if it's not going to affect me, what the heck? Well, they woke up 4 or 5 years later, and a lot of them were in concentration camps, and the cops were coming through the doors. So, in my opinion, we are repeating history. It's not going to look the same. I mean, there's a really good book by a fellow named Bertram Gross. He wrote it in 1980. It's called Friendly Fascism. He said he thought fascism would come here with a smile. And again, he should know what he was talking about. He worked under both the FDR and the Harry Truman administrations. He was a presidential advisor. He said, what I'm seeing is really alarming. Well, we're now over 30 years past all that, and with 80,000 SWAT team raids, they're watching everything we're doing. Sure. So what's happening is they're bypassing our Constitution. The Fourth Amendment's really clear. The government should not do surveillance on American citizens unless they have probable cause, which means we have to be up to something illegal. But I think here's the crux of it, and I argue it in my book, is technology's running the show now. I mean, there's a whole different thing we're dealing with. When you have a computer like the NSA has, which can download 1 trillion bits of information automatically and give it to an agent, I mean, there's nothing you can do as private anymore. The question is, in a free society, should we be looking over our shoulder? And they use the information against troublemakers. Martin Luther King, the FBI, collected 17,000 pages of information against Martin Luther King to discredit, by the way, he's my hero, to discredit Martin Luther King and the great work he was doing. So they have used it in the past against so-called troublemakers. And I tell people this: well, if you're not causing some trouble, that's maybe a problem, because if you're really concerned about freedom today, I say get educated, read good articles, read my book, and then cause some trouble.
What about the national security? What about the national security angle? Because the others argue that, you know what, this is necessary, and if you believe that there's some ulterior motive, that they're doing this for other reasons besides national security, or do you believe they're doing it for national security reasons, but they're just not doing it correctly and it's ineffective and inappropriate? Which one of those?
It's my opinion. This is, again, I've been in this area 40 years doing civil liberties work and writing. I've written over 20 books on the subject. It's control. Once a government gains control of a situation, they don't like to relinquish that control. The chances of getting killed by terrorists in the United States, the probability is the same as getting hit by lightning. So it's very, very low. And I think, as I argue in my book, I call it the propaganda of fear. It does work. I mean, Hermann Goering, who was one of Hitler's henchmen, said it works the same in every country. Instill fear into people and you can take over. And I'm not saying it, people in the government are evil. I run into a lot of good Secret Service agents who tell me they don't like the way things are going, but they're helpless. And the thing I think we have to realize here, and this is really, really important, technology is so awesome and powerful today. I mean, the FBI admits now they can turn your cell phone on from a distance and turn it into a microphone.
Well, I was going to ask you this. We're on Skype right now. Do you think they're listening in on us?
Oh yeah, I don't think anything you're doing on the internet. I've been told this by NSA agents. They say the number that we're being given is really, really low. They're downloading virtually everything. In my book, I have a whole section on their new computer, the NSA. It is an amazing thing.
I'd imagine they'd be very interested in this interview right now. Well, let me move on a little bit to a separate subject.
One thing to show you how powerful this computer is. It can download the entire contents of the Library of Congress in 6 hours.
Okay. You talk also in the book a little bit about how children's schools are becoming sort of the impetus for this police state that you think is coming. Tell us a little bit about that. What's going on in America's schools that concerns you so much?
Well, we've been handling zero tolerance cases, for example, since the mid-1990s. In fact, we were one of the first groups to do it, where kids are thrown out of school for bringing a Lego toy in or wearing a shirt that someone doesn't like in the school. What's happening now, and this is routine, I show it in my book, kids are getting arrested and taken to jail for food fights. And recently in Chicago, some African-American teens got in an argument in the hallway. They took them downstairs and did genital searches. So what kids are being trained in our schools, in my opinion, right now, is to be very compliant if you step out of line. I mean, we got cases where a kid actually brought in, this is an actual case we had. 4 kindergartners are playing on the playground. They're going bang, bang with their fingers. The teachers pull them in. The police are called in. They're told they were violating a zero tolerance policy against weapons, their fingers. So those cases are legion.
Isn't that more due to the liberal foolishness and political correctness that so many teachers and administrators have around the country than a police state? I mean, yeah, there are problems in schools. You have gang problems in inner city schools. You have, Newtown, Columbine. Those are things that are genuinely of concern, and if we can stop them, we should. But I mean, it doesn't seem like, some idiot teachers who are stopping kids from using finger guns really the next logical step is a police state in our schools. I don't know if that's the logical connection.
Let me finish here. Yeah, there are all these cases. There are legion. There's so many, and I outline them in my book, where kids are basically taking down the police stations now.
Okay.
In my day, a case we actually had where a kid threatened to shoot a girl across the room, a 4th grader, with a spit wad. Okay. He was taken out of the classroom. The police were called. He was talked to. He was put into counseling. He never shot her. That night, he was awakened, his family, and the father came downstairs, the doorbell rang, and they opened the door, and there was 2 policemen standing there, and they said, "We've come to investigate the shooting incident." So that's one thing. But as I talk to experts in the field, they say the shooters, which are rare, when it does happen, the problem is we're too busy watching the kids pointing their fingers. So, but there may be no intention here by teachers to do what they're doing. But what it is teaching kids to be very, very nervous. If you step out of line, these things are going to happen.
You talked a little bit,
and this is more alarming to me, civics. Your average kid coming out of school day, high schooler, has no idea what's in the Bill of Rights. They're not being taught that.
We know that firsthand because we ask people every day these simple questions about what's in the Bill of Rights, and most college students don't even know that. So that's an entirely different problem in itself. I want to ask you a little bit about...
It starts in the educational system where they're not teaching. I talk to civics teachers, and they say, I don't have time to teach it.
Right. Well, okay, you talk a little
I'm too
bit
busy
in one
preparing
of your...
SOL.
So
they're not teaching them. And we go, Thomas Jefferson said the basis of education was education, civil liberty.
Okay, I want to move on. One last thing. In one of your articles, you recently mentioned the new movie Elysium, starring Matt Damon.
Yep.
And you talk a little bit about robots being used in the future to support this police state that you're talking about. I mean, that does sound like something from a movie, but I mean, tell us about that. What do you envision with these new robot overlords or androids? What is the role going to be, and how soon can we expect something like that to happen?
Well, the overview here is by President Obama signed a law in effect giving drones the right to fly over American airspace 2015. They're saying 30,000 at least by 2020 with no civil liberties protections whatsoever in the law. Drones are, they have hummingbird drones, they have seagull drones, they have all miniature drones now. They're going to be everywhere. You're going to be watched. There's no way you're going to get away from that. But as I detailed in that Elysium column you're talking about, they have a new thing they call the Atlas Android. It's a 6-foot man that'll be able to walk. I mean, you can go on YouTube and watch it. That's pretty scary, but that's really your policeman of the future, in my opinion.
Do you think they'll be enforcing the laws and making sure that people don't step out of line?
Say, well, I will resist the robot. You can't resist a robot. But go back to the Occupy protest in 2011, how brutally that was put down. That was by police.
Well, look, the occupiers are... I was there. Those occupiers were constantly antagonizing police officers. They were about to get out of hand. I have a lot of sympathy for those police officers having to deal with those guys because, trust me, I saw it all.
Sympathy for them, too. But what's going to happen here, in my opinion, is in the future, drones will take care of that problem. You will see very few police.
Well, what do you think now, if this all comes to fruition, and obviously you believe it's going to, what can Americans who feel the same way you do to either A, convince other Americans that this is on the way to happening, or B, prepare for the coming, robot apocalypse, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, I'm not the only one saying that. I mean, the robot thing's coming.
I know you are. I know there are others saying that. But how do you convince other Americans of this?
Education precedes action. If you're really concerned about these things, get educated on the subject. Learn the Bill of Rights. My book's a good place to start. Articles, Rutherford.org, other websites. My mantra is this: act locally, think nationally. I wrote the first anti-drone law in the world. It was passed in my hometown of Charlottesville. I had everybody in my office from Britain to Holland saying, you people are crazy. Why do you want drones in America? And I'm not anti-drone, by the way. Drones will be used for good things or used for bad things, but I'm concerned how that's going to happen. But get educated. You can really make some headway locally. If you don't like the zero tolerance policies in your schools, go to your local school board meeting, get your friends together, do what the founding fathers did, get active. We don't want violence. Again, Martin Luther King pointed the way. He said we need to resist these things. And he did sit-ins, he picketed and all those things, and they antagonized the police as well. And, again, they were brutally treated. But the point is that the future I see, and I've been studying this for years, it does not look good unless we really get active. And it's up, the Constitution starts with those 3 beautiful words: we the people, we are the government. So if we want a better government, it's up to us to do it.
John Whitehead, thank you so much for joining us. Your book, once again, is A Government of Wolves, The Emerging American Police State. It's available online. Is it available in stores yet?
Yeah, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other stores.
Okay, so you can get it just about anywhere. Well, thank you so much. This is a very, very interesting topic, and we hope to talk to you again soon, all right?
Good interview.
Thanks, John.